Hundreds lost their lives in the race to be the first to discover the North Pole, but on April 6, 1909, after several daring attempts, Commander Robert Peary and his trusted assistant Matthew Henson and their 4 recruited Inuit team members, who were masters of survival, finally reached the top of the world.
Matthew Henson. August 8, 1866 to March 9, 1955. Matthew Henson was an African-American Arctic explorer.
Matthew Henson was born in Charles County, Maryland.
Matthew had to leave school at a young age to support his growing family.
When Henson was young, his mother died, and his family had to move to Washington, D.C., where his father died.
After his father died, he had to take care of his many siblings.
Finding a ship in which they didn't treat black sailors badly was very difficult to find.
Henson had an even greater challenge, however, because he was an African American, and he's living in a time and dreaming about polar exploration at a time when African Americans are seen as inferior to whites. Remember that we're less than half a century out of slavery.
He met Captain Childs, where he learned navigational and reading skills. 6 years later, Captain Childs died.
Coming into the Baltimore Harbor, I suppose, and in my imagination at least, I see him coming toward the schooners that must have been berthed there, coming up to one, the Katie Hines, and this is the ship that Captain Childs masters.
Well, he's taken on as a cabin boy initially, so
right.
That's not unusual. But what is unusual is the amount of attention that the captain gave to him, because he really did teach him. He trained him how to navigate, and so that man had a very important influence on Henson's life.
Henson took the job in a hat store where he was offered to be the assistant of Lieutenant Robert Peary.
Henson was hesitant about taking a job as a servant. However, Peary's expedition to Nicaragua seemed to offer adventure.
Due to Matthew Henson's hard work, he was treated more like a right-hand man than a servant.
For nearly a half year, Peary and Henson traveled together, enduring extreme heat and torrential rains. Henson finished his work in 1888. As he was sailing home, he was proud of the good work he had done and of the new skill he had mastered. Yet he also felt let down. He worried he would never have the chance to explore new parts of the world or to use the knowledge and talents he had acquired.
That he gains on board ship, and the confidence and the courage as well that enables him to do this extraordinary thing later.
On the ride from Nicaragua, Peary had thanked Henson for his hard work and had proposed the idea of being the first man to reach the North Pole, an idea that he has been planning since 2 years before this.
When he was a member of the Katie Hines, he had spent part of a winter in the port of Murmansk with Captain Childs.
After that, Henson had quickly agreed to join Peary on his trip to Greenland.
There were few good opportunities for blacks in the United States, and he feared that he would have to take a dull job that offered him little hope of gaining any distinction. Peary then explained with embarrassment that he could not afford to pay any of the men who signed on with him. Henson laughed. He just desired adventure. He didn't care.
Peary had realized that he had found a man who shared his own desire to test himself in unknown regions and who would endure great hardships to win a name for himself.
Peary had to win the financial support of many organizations and wealthy individuals. This was to pay for the trip to Greenland.
Peary was eventually able to obtain financial support from 3 scientific organizations. Contributions were also solicited from men who applied to join Peary's expedition.
Although Henson knew that many people believed he was crazy to want to go to the far north, he was nonetheless surprised and angered when one of the officers at the Navy Yards told him that black men could not survive in the Arctic regions. The officer believed that Henson would be a victim of frostbite, a condition that occurs when parts of the body such as the ears, nose, fingers, and toes are not protected adequately from the cold and thus become frozen. The other expedition members include Ivan Astrup, a Norwegian who was an expert in cross-country skiing.
Frederick Cook was a medical doctor who wished to study the life of the native Greenlanders.
Langdon Gibson was a hunter who also studied birds. And 6 Inuit team members that were skilled in surviving in frigid temperatures such as Greenland and the Arctic. And John Verhoeven, a wealthy man from the Netherlands.
As they got closer to the Arctic, they can feel the temperature dropping.
A few days before the ship reached its destination, an ice floe hit the kite's rudder, the flat steering board that projects below the ship. The collision caused the tiller, which is connected to the rudder, to break free. Peary, who was standing nearby, was struck by the tiller, and the bones on the lower part of his right leg were broken.
Matthew Henson had to build Robert Peary crutches. Peary had once said, "I can't get along without him."
At the end of July, the kite sailed away, leaving the expedition without any hope of receiving supplies until the following summer. Henson had to build sledges for the team because they had to withstand the freezing cold of the Arctic and the North Pole.
When an Inuit member saw Matthew Henson, based off of his skin color, he thought that Matthew Henson was a lost Inuit member.
In addition, the Inuit had exchanged their knowledge of survival in the Arctic for goods. If Matthew Henson and Robert Peary didn't get help from the Inuit, they may have not reached the North Pole.
Because of the Eskimos' teachings to Matthew Henson, he became a very good sledge handler. The Inuit had adopted Matthew Henson and taught him about survival, and he taught what he learned to the rest of his team after practicing a lot.
Henson was so similar to the Inuit that he even married one of the Inuit women. On March 6, 1894, the expedition got underway. This time, Henson was in a party that encountered high winds and bitter temperatures as well as -50 degrees. On March 6, 1894, his team had found meteorites and sold parts of it for future expeditions.
Finally, on April 10th, Peary gave the order to retreat. His group had traveled only 125 miles, about 1/4 of the way to its destination.
Bartlett and Borup started out with the advance party that would break the trail for the other groups. Henson and his Eskimo helpers followed one day later. For 1/4 of a mile, they followed the advance party's path over the jagged ice near the shore. At the end of the first day of travel, they took shelter in an igloo that Bartlett and Borup had made at the end of their first march. The igloo was only 12 miles from shore. They still had 400 more miles to go. Hours later, Henson stopped and backtracked a ways before making camp. He believed they may have overshot the pole.
Matthew Henson was largely overlooked when giving credit to being the first person to reach the geographical North Pole. Throughout the final expedition, Macmillan and Goodsell first turned back, then Borup, then Marvin, then Bartlett, and finally Henson and Peary made it.
Robert Peary was calculating on preserving just enough supplies to let a few men reach the pole. However, no one, not even Henson, knew who Peary would choose to stay with him until the end.
Matthew Henson once stated Mr. Peary was a noble man, and it was a privilege to serve him. He was always my friend. I have been fortunate indeed. I have not expected much, and I have not been disappointed.
In addition, Frederick Cook had claimed that he had reached the North Pole a year before Henson had.
People had believed him due to Henson's race, however, he was later proved wrong. Later on, he was invited by President Eisenhower.
Matthew Henson once said, "Yes, after the final Arctic expedition, a place was made for me here in the Customs Service. I shall retire in 1936 at the full age of 70, and then I may devote my entire leisure to the memory of the active years in the Northland and my pleasant, quiet years here at my desk."
On April 6, 1909 and 2000, the National Geographic Society posthumously awarded Matthew Henson its highest honor, the Hubbard Medal.
Matthew Henson had paved the road for other African Americans. He had made many accomplishments as an explorer.
In addition, he had exchanged with the Inuit and encountered them many times throughout his life. He had even married one of the Inuit women. He will be forever known for his explorations.